And a very good morning to you, my friend Lucian. I'm Gabe at FPL Lens. We got some haulers in the chat. This is the Net That Haul, the award-winning show, Net That Haul matchups review show for Game Week 12. Welcome to everybody. Welcome to everyone in the chat. Carl Valencia in the chat is already telling us it better be gold medal standard. And I'm saying that's all we got, Carl. We have what we have, and we are who we are. So we're happy that you're joining us. And I got to say, here's a personal admission on my end. I have one of the worst memories of anybody that I can remember. So I'm glad we're doing this show, Lucian, because you're going to bring us all up to speed on all the matchups, and we're going to do it all in under an hour. 1 minute in. How are you doing, my friend?
Well, I am humbly grateful for every opportunity that you guys have presented me. So really, a big thank you to everyone in chat for being brutally honest, because honestly, I've only been here for 13 shows technically. And I'd really like to say, like, please, everybody, every holler in chat, whether in Discord or on YouTube, watching this right now, please leave as much feedback as you can so that we can improve this show. We want to maintain this gold standard, and yeah, we will take gladly any sort of feedback that will help improve the show, what you like to see more of, what you like to see less of. We will happily adapt to what the people want, as long as, it's to our forte and it's reasonable. So shall we begin?
Yeah, let's get right into it here. We'll waste no time. But yeah, definitely let us know what you think and what you would like to see as well. We've already had some feedback from the haulers in Discord. Thank you, Luke. And so we're working on some changes, and we want to do them subtly. We want to do them with with tact. So yeah, let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want. To begin the Game Week 12 top scorers, we had just go over the results to refresh all our memories. I'm going to whip through these as quickly as I can. Wolves 2, Spurs 1. Congratulations, my friend. I thought you guys deserved that one. I was pretty gutted when Spurs scored, I got to be honest, but we won't speak about my bias anymore. Arsenal 3, Burnley 1, Palace 2, Everton 3 in a fun little crazy one. Manchester United 1, Luton 0 in last match on Match of the Day, surely. Bournemouth 2, Newcastle 0. Villa 3, Fulham 1, Brighton 1, Sheffield United 1. Brighton, who are Brighton these days? We're going to find out. Liverpool 3, Brentford 0. West Ham 3, Forest 2 in an interesting one. And I mean, there's just all sorts of crazy scores. Then we have the Chelsea 4, Man City 4. The top scorers for Game Week 12. We have some of the like old favorites, Salah and Haaland topping it with 16 points apiece. And then there's also some rogue visitors, as we've seen in weeks past. We have Tsimikas coming in with 15 points. Surprisingly, thankfully he came off my bench for some jam. Lindelof 15 points. It's just funny. Trossard 13 points. Well done. Solanke 13 points. I want to know more about him. Doucouré 11. Ward-Prowse 11. Pablo Sarabia 11. Which honestly, just for that one, it should be 22. You should just double his points because it was so sweet. Love to see a goal like that. Zinchenko coming in with 10 points. John McGinn, 10 points. Conor Gallagher, 10 points. And Lemina, got 2 Wolves and players in there with 10 points. Hopefully the haulers in the chat. And Nima's joining us. What's up, fellas?
Hey.
First time watching for FPL Soccer Crazy. Welcome. Now, just so everybody knows, let me make an announcement before we get into the review here. So we're gonna do the main matchup shows tomorrow, about 25 hours from now, and we'll have Nima will be on the show and Mariner will be on the show, and we'll do a big thank you and all of that. This is a kind of crunch time limited show, so we're just kind of do nuts and bolts today. And then we'll do more let's just call it social emotional tomorrow. All right. But here we have we'll start with Wolves Tottenham. And Lucian, as you tell us about Wolves Tottenham, I highlighted Son, Porro, Juan, and Sar making runs in from deep. What did you see in this game?
Absolutely none of that. Thank God. uh, the unfortunate thing here was that Wolves set up as a compact block, as you might put it, however, whatever numbers you choose to use. But yes, Poro's width coming in early happened once for Brendan Johnson, once to score, and Spurs literally did nothing after that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this particular matchup because it has literally zero fantasy relevance. Madison is expected to be back, perhaps, and this basically is our evidence, our only possible evidence of Spurs without James Madison. And the answer is instead of playing with a number 10, they just have full emphasis on the flanks, particularly on the right side where Kulusevski, well, is the next best thing. But beyond that, Spurs created extremely little. And really, it just came down to what sort of tactical innovation Gary O'Neill could come up with. But that is another podcast for perhaps another Wolves appearance somewhere else. Um, and that's about it. Oh yes, on Wolves, Huang. Yes, Huang had some relevance, but he had more impact on the left after substitutions compared to playing on the right side. What Wolves did, basically, long story short, was that they removed their entire left side instead of trying to force things through with Ryan A. Nuri, who had so many chances, so many chances. They just removed him completely and stuffed in as many central midfielders as possible. And that was all she wrote. They had all these central midfielders running in from deep. And once again, zero fantasy relevance because Pedro Neto should be back pretty soon. I at least
Mhm.
expect him to be training pretty soon, and we wouldn't see this whole side again.
We may see this Tottenham side again, or something like it. Maybe with a change. Maybe Lo Celso comes in for in that 10 position. I don't know that Madison will be healthy just yet. We'll go into that a little bit in more detail tomorrow. I think Lo Celso brings something a little bit different to this team, though, and I find his kind of let's just say his chaotic presence to give Spurs some potential. Like I said, we'll talk about that specific matchup tomorrow. Next one is Arsenal Burnley, and this one with everybody, the talk of the town, and this one was obviously the space that Burnley leave, and which one of the Arsenal players would be able to take advantage of that space. In my thread, I highlighted Saka, Martinelli, and Gabriel for potentially something from a set piece or something like that, in addition to a clean sheet. What did you see?
Well, let's deal with the straightforward stuff, shall we? Set piece, absolutely. Profiteer, not Gabriel. Saliba, yes. I think we tend to ignore the fact that Saliba actually has just a nose for being at the right place at the right time for set pieces. I mean, I really don't think it's a case of just beating Burnley in the air. I think Arsenal set pieces have a lot more sophistication than we expect. We just don't have the time to elaborate on them. So next up, Burnley without Lyle Foster. We hope he gets well soon. But at the moment, Koleosho is doing everything right for the Clarets. And so long as he plays on that left side, Burnley will continue to attack down that left side and do everything right. The only problem is that they just don't have a finisher. So, until they find someone better than Jay Rodriguez, hopefully in January, yeah, we're just stuck with Koleosho doing bits, but with no end product. Okay, now, to the slightly more complicated stuff, because our concern, well, I bought Martinelli. I was really disappointed, really, because we tend to ignore uh, the effect of Leo Trossard as the number 9. We kept assuming that, perhaps Martinelli would play the number 9, perhaps somebody else would play the number 9. But yes, with Nketiah benched, we saw Trossard as a relatively greedy, quote unquote, number 9, instead of Martinelli being the focal point. But more crucial here, the timing of when we purchase Bukayo Saka, right? Because that's exactly what we want. And well, Bukayo Saka, being the superhero that he is, basically had to do everything literally on his own. He had no Thomas Partey, he had no Ben White, he had no Martin Odegaard. So he was literally forced to work with Kai Havertz. Who was their right back? I don't even remember who their right back was. And yes, Bukayo Saka basically
I'll
had to
tell
take
you.
on multiple Burnley defenders on his own, really, without any sort of help. So it just goes to show that Saka somehow producing 6 points from that right flank without any assistance whatsoever shows his high FPL floor potential, as compared to Martinelli, who did
Mhm.
bits on the flanks but had very little end product because they just don't have a number nine, legitimately.
I, I think you bring up a good point. Kind of like all we talk about in regards to Gabriel Martinelli is his ceiling, right? But his floor is it's that easily 2 points, sometimes one. Saka's floor is definitely much higher. It was Tomiyasu who came in at right back, and I mean, so so I kind of like I see every week Arsenal stats are somewhat muted. I see Saka playing a little bit wider, a little bit more, a little bit deeper as well in recent games. And I made the decision to go with triple Arsenal defense. As a way to differentiate. Now, whether that works out, obviously, is way too early. I've only been on that for 1 week, and it's worked out so far in the sense that Ben White got benched and I got the Shimikas points. But I wanted to ask you, moving forward, let's assume you do want three Arsenal assets. What are your three?
Well, Bukayo Saka is a given. The sooner we get news on Nketiah, the better, because I do believe that Nketiah as a number nine is extremely valuable, far more valuable than your Julian Alvarez's, and I mean, Ollie Watkins. We have to time it a little bit, but yes, I do foresee us transitioning into a 3-5-2 extremely soon because we don't have a fit Newcastle forward. So besides Haaland, we literally don't have anyone else unless you want to punt with Jackson.
Apparently, I don't know. Apparently, Isak is fit.
Yeah,
So we have
and
we have Isak, Watkins,
oh,
Alvarez,
all
Solanke.
right,
We'll talk more about
okay.
Solanke tomorrow. Those of you who are interested, I'm really interested in Solanke. Awoni now, although Awoni maybe he's a little bit more rotation prone. I mean, I think I don't know. And then the other thing I would say is that getting Saka, and we'll move on quickly after this question. Getting Saka, he is the obvious choice, but I didn't go for Saka because while the floor might be high, recently the upside's not high because the attack isn't extremely prolific or at least as much as other teams or other midfielders you can get, right? Like so it's the opportunity cost of using one of those midfield slots on Saka where the defense is performing quite well for Arsenal, top two in the league maybe. Um so I think it's okay to go away from Saka now, but at the beginning of the season, I made a mistake in not starting with him. So this could be another mistake like that. Time will tell. Next match, Palace Everton.
Ah,
Yeah, let me just see. I got. Oh no, go ahead. You can start on this one.
well, the focus is on the return of the king. I have bought that specific player, replacing my injured Mitoma because I have seen enough.
Hmm.
Eze is firmly within our thoughts, and I mean, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna wax lyrical about how good Eze is. Everyone knows how good Eze is. I think for me, it's more about the landscape, the landscape of the Premier League at the moment, where VAR is just awarding so many penalties for no particular reason. So that's where Eze truly shines, earning penalties. Because no matter who he takes on, right, you have to be aware that Eze does not take on defenders the way Zaha does, or the way Olise does.
Mm-hmm.
Eze deliberately uses his acceleration so that his trailing leg clips somebody. He's not a change of pace or a change of direction guy like Wilfred Zaha that actually gets 5 yards for a shot. Eze dribbles with almost no purpose to shoot or pass the ball to somebody else. You very rarely see an Ebre Eze goal that involves him dribbling past multiple players and assisting somebody or shooting at goal. Very, very rare. So yes, all of this is designed to win fouls, and I absolutely love it. That's Eze in a nutshell. This
Hmm.
unfortunately diminishes the output of everyone else. And I think let's talk about Everton a bit more. I think we have to give them a lot more credit than just being a Sean Dyche team because James Garner in central midfield is an absolute revelation. Absolute revelation. At least combined with Jack Harrison on the right. Now there's less focus on DCL. DCL can actually do his job of being like that Mikel Antonio type number nine. just being a proper physical presence instead of having to do literally everything on his own. And so you get this situation, right? Big green flag now, where one flank will create for the other. A lot of situations in this particular case basically saw Everton win the ball centrally, and they would use DCL as a beacon of sorts. And then you would see Harrison cross for McNeil, or vice versa. It's basically one side crossing for the other. And this is why Mikolenko has been getting so many goals recently. Basically, literally nobody tracks him because everyone's so focused on McNeil. And well, I don't know how soon teams will catch on, but at the moment, punting on an Everton defender given their schedule, it's a wait and see. It's a wait and see. But if you want to punt, if you want to choose between Jack Harrison, Abdoulaye Doucouré, and Dwight McNeil, Harrison has the high floor, Doucouré has the extremely high ceiling because Doucouré's got the street smarts in terms of overloading the right areas when he identifies a weakness, similar to how Mbeumo does it for Brentford, and that's how
Hmm.
Everton operate at the moment.
So I highlighted McNeil, Eza, and Calvert Lewin in the prediction here, and specifically, obviously McNeil having space to create from that side against Joel Ward. So I wondered what you thought about that, but before that, just a quick comment on Eza. I think it's not. I don't think Eza's move is only to win fouls. He often like he'll do that burst forward and then come back into the space and shoot from that space that he created where the defender backs up, and that's a bit like if the but I guess the foul is the plan A, right? He'll like trail the leg. If the foul doesn't work, then he'll come back and hit that shot. But in terms of do you really see the right creating for the left much moving forward for Everton? Does Jack Harrison have the cross? He certainly doesn't have the cross that McNeil has, obviously, but does he have that kind of creativity and cross to be a threat from that side?
I'd say that with a resounding yes, especially with enough evidence now. We've just been so used to the Leeds version of Harrison being used as a
Mm-hmm.
third central midfielder that
Mm-hmm.
now we see him actually pressed down that right side, right? I mean, I've seen him cross from deep. I've seen him rush to the byline to chip to the far post. I've seen low drives across the box now. So I do believe that there is enough evidence, given he has time to run onto the ball. If he's static, crossing like the way McNeil does it, Harrison has no quality. But running with the ball at momentum, crashing into the box, Harrison is much more lethal.
Okay. We'll move on here because I don't think we'll tell anybody to get Jack Harrison. So for FPL purposes, I think we're getting a little bit in the weeds, but that's what we do. So hopefully you enjoy it as much as we do. Speaking of not enjoying things, Manchester United won, Luton nothing. I don't really want to talk about this game, so I'm just gonna let you go.
Well, the latest solution is to play Marcus Rashford on the right, not Bruno Fernandes. This basically is to sort of accommodate Garnacho playing on the left side and Højlund up front. And honestly, it's been working okay. Well, working okay in terms of dealing with Luton's weaknesses. I think what everyone really wants to know is not why Man United are good. Everyone wants to know why Luton are bad, right? Because on one hand, we do feel that Luton concede a lot of chances zonally, right? And at the same time, Luton just aren't a Premier League side at the moment. Literally all across the pitch, they can come up with any innovative or direct tactic they want. The facts are that Osho, Lockyer, and Mengi are nowhere close to Premier League quality. I mean this with the utmost respect for them performing to their best ability. But in terms of space management, individual ability, they've been exposed for pace. They've been caught under the ball watching. They've like been exposed so many times, whether being stretched laterally, dealing with the likes of Marcus Rashford, or whether they've just attempted to play it compact but not deal enough pressure to just win the ball back in their areas of dominance. It's just been sucky everywhere. And that's why, sometimes it looks like a zonal issue, but really it's just about their opponents having strengths in those zones when you look at them like properly. So, I mean, really, I just say that Luton concede from everywhere. They literally concede from everywhere. You don't even need a goal chart. You can just look at the shots, and it's as simple as perhaps. Okay, I'll give you one really good example, right? Um, United are attacking Luton, but instead of us expecting Luton to be a compact 5-3-2 or 5-2-3, what have you, they push their left wing back Doty all the way up to press United's right back, Dalot. And so what happens is just one long ball dismantles the entire back line. And suddenly Marcus Rashford is on his own on the right flank, not opposed
Mhm.
by anybody. And Luton's outside centre back Osho has to go from his 6-yard box push all the way out, and that creates a massive gap between himself and the central centre back Lockyer. So Rashford is there, he sees that humongous gap, and he just chips the ball over Lockyer. It's that easy. And Hoyland has this 0.64 XG shot in the 6th minute, right? If everyone noticed, that brilliantly got saved by Kaminsky. But really, it's like
Mhm.
it's not even a zonal thing, it's just a standard Premier League quality thing where Luton are completely out of their depth. So it's just a matter of who scores first. It's just a matter
Yeah,
of
I
who
see.
scores.
Like, and one thing that I'll also like bring up in more detail tomorrow is, so in the thread I highlighted like, well, I said Anthony as kind of a half joke, but whoever was playing that right side, kind of attacking Luton's left side, where Alfie Doughty is playing, like you mentioned. But I noticed also that at home they're very different, right? So at home, Luton concede 2 chances from the left, 3.2 chances from the center, and 3.8 chances from the right, in terms of their zones. Whereas away, they concede over 6 chances from the left, 3.5 chances from the center, and 4.5 chances from the right. Um, so to your point, I think what I thought was a zonal weakness, it's just that and I was targeting kind of like in past matchups articles, and it'll obviously change for this week. Um, I was targeting Luton's left side. I think it's just target the plan A, or the plan A of the team that's going against Luton, and that plan A should be successful.
Mm. Yep, that's absolutely reasonable. Yeah.
All right. Next one, a shock one, obviously here with Bournemouth 2, Newcastle 0. Obviously, no, I don't think any predictions were right here with Gordon, Trippier, and Cher. How'd this one go?
Well, I'm gonna talk about. Okay, let's keep things simple, right? Because I think all of us. Oh, the real question surrounding this game is that now that Newcastle's good fixtures have officially run down with this game. Do we sell Newcastle? I think the answer is a very firm yes, simply because no tactical innovation that involves Matt Ritchie being in a starting 11 can save this side. They just have too many people injured, and even if Isak comes back, I think. Well, let's start with the straw that broke the camel's back for both sides. For both sides, because honestly, Bournemouth did not cover themselves in glory either. For Newcastle, the most important player that was missing in this side, despite the missing forwards, despite the missing wingers, the most important piece in here was Bruno Guimaraes, who was on a 5 yellow card suspension that he picked up against Arsenal the week before. And with him only expected to miss one game, Bruno Guimaraes coming back will literally change the entire side unless he's rested for a Champions League game. Um, yeah, because that was the gaping hole that Newcastle tried to fill with Miley and then Ben Parkinson. So they got completely overrun by Bournemouth's midfield. Absolutely overrun. So the other factor from the other side, Bournemouth, was that Philip Billing suffered a quad injury. So we lost the dynamic duo of Christie and Billing from the get-go. Wanna guess who filled in as the number 10?
No memory, no recollection. I didn't watch this
Yeah.
game. No, I didn't watch
Yeah.
this game.
Okay. So the most orthodox number 10 Bournemouth have, Justin Kluivert. And he doesn't actually play like a number 10. He's actually a winger that can play the number 10. So he constantly overloaded all the spaces Tavernier was in. You'd get all
Mm.
these matchups where Trippier was doubled up upon, and Newcastle had no response. So anyway, in the end, I think long story short, Dominic Solanke is a very sharp player. He's a very, very sharp player. It's almost as if he anticipates all these moves ahead of time. It's almost as if he has, when you practice a certain thing to the point where it becomes automated, you can instinctively move towards a certain type of thing you expect to happen. So people think that he's in the right place at the right time. But in reality, he's similar to a boxer that has practiced that single punch 10,000 times. And when that opportunity arises, he knows that the defender is going to make a mistake. And he's the first to pounce on whatever mistake Newcastle makes. It's just amazing to see a striker this sharp. I don't think that is a sharper striker in the league that can see these things happen ahead of time. So I
Hmm.
think really like full compliments to Solanke for being a gem in that team. Because regardless of tactics, he will be the one trying to do everything else like a cut above the rest. He will try crazy flick-ons, right? He's like the only guy that has scored from a backward side heel. Um, and that is his trademark. So I'd say, if you literally cannot find anybody else, Dominic Solanke is a pretty good third forward. But for Newcastle, the time is gone. No matter who they play at left wing, they can play Livermento there for all we care. It just doesn't work because their central midfield of Joel Linton, Miley, and Willock is just suffering too much from Europe fatigue at the moment. I'd say so. So unless they swap priorities and have, yeah, Bruno Guimaraes, Longstaff, and Joel Linton, those three need to be firmly in the starting 11 before we can even consider how Newcastle will attack. Yeah, never mind Matt Ritchie, Almiron, Gordon, whatever it is. It's all about the
So
central
you
midfield.
think you think Newcastle's attack is dependent not just on Bruno Guimaraes, but on the entire unit of the three,
Absolutely. Only
and
because, yeah, it comes down to
so
dynamics. Like, one of Newcastle's biggest strengths is their ability to counter press opponents, and they couldn't even dominate possession against Bournemouth. Joel Linton doesn't do it alone, and Joe Willock just
so
doesn't follow up the same.
so there's a question. One question I want to ask on that is like how do you think they proceed moving forward? Are they going to use those three center mids? Like Bruno Guimaraes is back. They're coming off a loss. I mean, I think those three will be cemented in house side, and others will start to get healthy. Number one, but I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding here in the chat with Black Screen. He says there's no way Solanke is sharper than Holland for FFS. I guess we're well into the show, so we can say it. And I don't think I don't think you mean that sharper, overall sharper. You said sharper for a specific skill. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just
Can
sharper
you
in
can you
terms of
repeat
instinct.
the yeah, in
Yeah,
terms of
absolutely,
instinct?
absolutely. Yeah, just sharper in terms of instincts. Haaland doesn't
Mm,
have to be sharper in terms of instinct because he's got so many other traits. He's physically
mm,
bigger, he has a larger sprint speed, he's got longer strides, literally, that doesn't require him to be sharper than anything else. He literally bullies opposition centre backs. So Haaland just, is so all-rounded that he doesn't have to be a
yeah.
second faster than everyone else.
That's
And
fair. And
yeah,
really quickly, and I think this one stuck in my head too. Blonde brings a good point up. If you can't find anyone else, nice summation. I think you were being a little bit harsh on Solanke there. I think Solanke is actually a kind of like a prime pick right now, and it could be a sneaky way to differentiate. We'll talk more about why, I guess, tomorrow. I don't know that this is the week for him. And we'll talk more why against because seems like a good matchup, right? Against Sheffield United, but I think there are some tactical reasons why it may be difficult for him. Let's move on to the next one here. As we approach 30 minutes. Great chat. Thanks to everyone for being there. Yeah, got some good friends in there. Please remember to hit the like. We got about 26, 30 of you watching. Hit that like, helps us out, makes us feel good, makes you feel good too. So here we go. Aston Villa against Fulham. And in this one, so I thought that Watkins wouldn't be needed to kind of like stretch Fulham, right, and like stretch their lines or anything like that, and that kind of highlighted Diaby and Cash. Um, and there's kind of like a theme going on in the league, and what happens to teams without their key central midfielder, right? And I'm thinking you just mentioned Bruno Guimaraes is one, right? Palhinha for Fulham is another one. When he misses, Fulham are a completely different team. Rodri for City is one. You could even say Declan Rice to an extent for Arsenal. If he's not there, that he changes that team. So there's this increased reliance, I think, on this intelligent ball winning and ball playing central midfielder. How did this one play out?
Well, I think we have to give full credit to Aston Villa for coming up with yet another novel new tactic for the first time. I think it just goes to show that, like, I think okay, let's start with what is we can predict actually correctly and reliably. Central matchup, absolutely yes. Watkins and Diaby are going to be central at some point of the game, and it just comes down to who scores first. In this case, Diaby profited from the creativity coming off the left side, but the hero is not Lucas Dean. It's actually Yuri Tillemans. Leicester's right central midfield pushed all the way up to the left side, bombing down the left side. It is like, boh. I did not believe it either. I did not believe it either. I don't understand. I cannot predict Emery's tactics going forward, and neither should we. Neither should we. Um, I think a big part of this was how profligate Zaniolo was in front of goal, because he had a lot of big chances when he was playing the orthodox number 10. So I think it's fair to say that Tielemans, as the left-sided midfielder, alternated a lot with John McGinn, who was playing on the left side before. Anyway,
Mhm.
tactical stuff aside, basically Watkins and Diaby, good. I think the real question comes down to whether you want to hold them through the tough fixtures, because right now Villa are doing okay against winnable opposition, but I think they've got like Man City and Arsenal coming up in the middle of December. So I think their shelf life is like 2 game weeks, but pretty much after Christmas you can buy them back. Now a few people have cited having Ollie Watkins as a captain against Fulham at home because, as you already mentioned, it's very easy to stretch Fulham. They literally do not protect their flanks. Palhinha is the force in the center of midfield, but they have literally nobody protecting the flanks. Um, that being said, I do believe that Robinson has been really unfairly judged based on the number of own goals he has conceded, because they are not of his doing. Um, it's baffling why Calvin Bessie is still in the side alongside Team Ream. Uh, sorry, Kombugler, if you're in chat, all with full respect, right? Yeah.
Of
Team
course
Ream
he
is
is.
a legend. Team Ream is a legend. Kevin Bessie, not so much. And I do believe that the difference between their left flank and their right flank is Bessie operating on the right side instead of the left. So in terms of FPL, if we want to target Fulham, all the shooting chances will be on Robinson's flank, and all the creativity, you basically want to, own left-sided midfielders against Fulham. Yeah, if you want like a high floor. But if you want a high ceiling, then you target Robinson's flank, you own right-sided midfielders against Fulham. So that's pretty
Mm.
much it. Because no one's gonna buy a Fulham midfielder. I wouldn't. And I'm a risk taker.
No, that's true, but targeting them, that's interesting that the creativity will come from Bassi's side, and the finishing will come from the other side. And I agree with you. I think Anthony Robinson has gotten a kind of like a bad shake this season. I do rate him as a player. I like him. But it's been a tough one for him, certainly. We'll move on to the next one. Brighton, Sheffield United. This one is super interesting because I think we're kind of learning more and more. Brighton don't have the depth. They don't have the depth. Like a few injuries, a few losses, and they're done. I highlighted. I thought Estupinian might be back, but at the time I wrote the article, I thought Estupinian might be back. That didn't come to fruition, so that kind of changes all the rest of the picks. I did say I think I said in there that if Estupinian is not back, then I like that Adingra more. And fair enough. Adingra certainly played a role. So why don't you tell us what happened?
Well, a number of people have put the highlights up for Adingra's goal. That was absolutely amazing. But you have to give credit at the very least for Brighton's other three forwards for occupying Sheffield United's other three centre backs. Like in this particular matchup, without Mitoma starting, which I do feel is a bigger factor, Adingra played the Mitoma role coming off the left side, and that meant you had the other three forwards, Buonanotte, Ansu Fati, and Adam Lallana, none of them orthodox number nines, literally sitting in front of the three Sheffield United centre backs. So all they have to do is make decoy runs. Yeah. And Adingra has a free run at goal. I think this match in particular exposed how bad Ansu Fati is as a number nine. You cannot get a discount from Evan Ferguson or Joao Pedro. Like you have to play one of those two as the number nine. You cannot compromise that particular role with Ansu Fati because it exposed his lack of pace to beat defenders, even though it's Sheffield United, and it just shows that Ansu Fati is better as a poacher rather than a number nine that leads the line. In terms of what happened throughout the game, because eventually Mitoma came on, Adingra's output on the right side basically faded entirely. Adingra is much, much more lethal playing on the left. And with Mitoma injured, potentially coming back from the international break, yes, as an Adingra owner, I'm very excited for their next game. I don't care who they play. One particular note on their left back, if Estupinian is not back, they played Igor, who was extremely
Mm-hmm.
boring. So, yeah, all their attacks basically went down the middle as a result, instead of down the left or the right. It's just that Adingra's just like that miracle worker that operates on the left. Are there any questions you have about Sheffield United? Because I really feel that
No,
it's just
I don't care. I don't care about Sheffield United. and I say it as an Archer owner. I just think it's irrelevant at this point. We can move on. Hold on. There we go. Okay, Liverpool. Liverpool Brentford. I mean, 3-0. Who did I highlight in this one? I think okay, Salah, Diaz, who didn't start. I wanted that and Wisa.
Do you remember 8 game weeks ago when we talked about owning somebody else other than Salah? Life was so much simpler back then, and we could have Diaz and Jota and Darwin all in the same conversation. 8 weeks later, we are here today, and we still cannot pick between the three. It's mildly frustrating.
I, Darwin hasn't been in any of my conversations, to be fair. You know that.
Yeah. So a huge factor that came down to this unpredictability, or at least I'd like to call it volatility, is down to the fact that against Luton on the left he played Gravenberch, Joe Gomez, right, all that behind Diogo Jota. And in this game Luis Diaz was expected to come back, so thankfully Jota played on the left, but this time around they played Tsimikas and Gakpo as the left central midfielder. So that Liverpool left is just a mess, an absolute FPL mess, because we don't know who will play, we don't know who will start. I'd love to tout Tsimikas even more, but I mean, that's how it is, right? You've got a simple layoff for a wonderful Jota shot. And I think I'd like to focus more on what Brentford are doing, because Brentford losing 3-0 is not a normal thing. Really, it's not a normal thing, despite them playing their trademark 3-5-2 formation against big teams.
Mhm.
Despite striking that incredible balance, finally, of playing Neil Maupay centrally and pushing Wisa out to the left. This time around, they reverted to their 3-5-2. They benched Maupay and they basically got Wisa to do all the hard work. And they put Mbomo, hoping that he would take advantage of Trent Alexander-Arnold's frailty. That unfortunately happened once. Mbomo had that one chance where he got around Trent, and yeah, he just didn't take it. So, I mean, push come to shove, I think for FPL purposes, we all know that Brentford are all about set pieces. So if you were to buy a Brentford centre back, especially considering the fact that we are all going to own Mbeumo after game week 14, for sure. Everyone's dying to find out which is the next best thing, right? I'm not going to push Wisa forward because I strongly and firmly believe that Brentford's set pieces, especially over the congested fixture period, will come to the fore. So I'm not going to recommend Christian Norgard either, but I do feel that someone like Ethan Pinnock is going to come into the fray. So it just comes down right now to how effective you believe Brentford's set pieces are going to be executed. So I'm not predicting things, but at least I can segregate between a well-run set piece by Brentford versus a scrappy goal where Brentford have to have looping headers and the ball bouncing around in the penalty area and things like that, right? So
Yeah.
there are two types of Brentford set pieces. The first type is the very deliberate, targeted type where you have Mbeumo or Jensen potentially, choosing between their in-swingers and their out-swingers. If you feel that Brentford are going to go on a run of scoring set pieces non-stop deliberately, you buy Collins, because Collins is everything good about Brentford aerially. Now, if you feel that Brentford are going to get scrappy, messy goals where you ricochets all over the 6-yard box, then you get Ethan Pinnock. So you judge Brentford's opponents
Hmm.
based on how well they defend set pieces. If you play against a West Ham, you get Pinnock. If you play against, I don't know, a Liverpool, or no, not a Liverpool, you play someone like a Burnley, yes, then you get Collins, hands down.
Interesting. I am surprised that Thomas Frank didn't have a better plan to attack Trent. To be perfectly honest, and like in Mbomo, he was all over the place. There was no like Mbomo's going to go here, he's going to go into this space. There was no plan like that. He floated all over that attacking half of the field, and I thought that it diminished their incisiveness. Like have this free floating Mbomo versus a targeted at a weakness. I thought was strange, and I agree with you. I don't think we see mistakes like that. If you do consider it a mistake, maybe you don't from Frank very often. So I expect, especially at home against Arsenal, I expect a little bit of I don't know, stronger opposition from Brentford. That being said, we'll talk about the details of that one tomorrow. But the way Arsenal control games versus Liverpool, compared to Liverpool, could suit them. Wait, did I skip one? Yeah, here we
Yep.
go. Double click there. Okay, next one, West Ham versus Forest. Let's see. In this one, so I highlighted Bowen, Kudus, and Awoni.
Well, I have such vivid memories of that Kudus volley, that sideways volley. That was so good. Um, yeah, but West Ham, I think we still have to acknowledge that the more things change, the more things stay the same. West Ham suck in open play. They absolutely do not do anything right in open play, and they they like Brentford fall back on set pieces, but instead of working out a routine, James Ward-Prowse is bailing them out time and time again. It has to be said though that I think the real conversation around West Ham is whether Bowen playing as an out of position number 9 is worth the money, the investment, and the time and the stress. Because, well, let's just put it this way: when you watch West Ham, you do not want to own a player from West Ham. They literally are doing nothing for most of the game, and you're better off stress free owning one of their players on the app. You just let the notifications ring. You see it as like, oh, Bowen. Oh, thank goodness I have Bowen. Yeah, and you just move on. The more interesting side is Nottingham Forest, because they can win games, especially at home. I think a number of content creators have said now that Forest are a force. Forest are a force at home. Yeah, that's quite difficult to say. So the key difference here is that Forest are finally able to establish the balance of when to take control of games and be creative, as opposed to when to feel the midfield to make it full of steel so that they just keep it tight. In this particular case, I'm not going to recommend Forest players, right? I think we've had enough PTSD from Morgan Gibbs White. But Awani, as you rightly highlighted, is back to being our favorite far post tap in header merchant thing. And we have to acknowledge that, we need to ask ourselves the question, right? If Awani were to score a goal, where would the cross come from? Will it be a Morgan Gibbs White free kick? Will it be Serge Aurier's double assist that we got in game week 4? Ha! No, that happened for Chris Wood. But in this particular case, the left side had a lot of synergy, not Ilanga specifically, but Tofolo and Dominguez. They're working out this little triangle on the left side that, managed to put in crosses for Awani early on. But as they shifted tactics because they were trailing at halftime, they brought on Danilo, and that put a lot more emphasis on their right. So, I mean, really, the moral of the story is Forest Awani good, mm, but do not buy any potential creative players you see. Yeah, I'm
Mm.
just gonna keep it summarized like that.
So I think Awani and Solanke are the same price in FPL. And I don't think, is there an argument for Awani over Solanke? Not really.
Headed matchups, headed matchups. I cannot
Better
remember
matchups.
Solanke scoring a headed goal.
Right on. Fair enough. Cool. I like it. All right, 46 minutes in, and I think we're down to just have one more to go, right?
All right.
The big one. Here we go, man. Chelsea 4, Manchester City 4. Who do I got? I got Holland, of course. Doku Grealish, whoever's on that Manchester City left. Actually, Manchester City flanks. But I didn't highlight anybody for Chelsea because of the matchup. But this was a wild one. One thing I'll say is like a lot of like this was a fun one. But I don't agree that this is like one of those like quality like massive teams with all this quality. Kind of this was a game of like chaos and like weird mistakes and not very good goals, to be perfectly honest, aside from the Thiago Silva goal maybe, but all the rest were like it was a very strange. This looked like I don't know, like a almost like a relegation brawl or like some mid-table derby or something like that. What did you see?
I think game state plays a very big part in everything that happened here because
Hmm.
I think this is one of the rare times in history where you have a game that has four equalizing goals. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we've seen comebacks, we've seen like, yeah, but four equalizing goals. So it's like, one or two or three or, and a large part of this comes down to how each team altered their tactics throughout those different scores. Mm, so the real question is, right, if you okay, I'm gonna phrase this from two different perspectives since we have a little bit of time. Uh okay, question number one. Do we buy a player that performs well regardless of tactics? Or do we invest in a player that is going to be part of the plan A? Because we know that, time and time again, if we notice things at nil-nil, we know that it's very likely or it's the most likely that next game onwards at nil-nil, they're going to at least, keep that same tactic for the first 45 minutes. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
at least an agreeable premise that we
Mm.
can, predict for the next game. So, in this particular match, right, just like was it the Man United game? The last game that Man City played, they won a goal off a random VAR check that led to a penalty. So I think this is a very big issue for Man City because they are so dominant on the ball that random decisions like that can go for them, and then they establish a lead that early on. Um,
In the
More important
Bournemouth
though,
game, the 6-1.
was it? Oh yeah, 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 yeah. It was the Bournemouth game. Yes. Yeah, they just randomly win a penalty and pull ahead, right? And that undoes a lot of hard work their opponents put into preparing for those matches, right? I mean, you imagine yourself preparing for a Man City game. You're gonna be trying to keep the score at nil-nil for as long as you can, right? And plan B is if you fall behind early on, right? Then okay, fine. You have your throwing caution to the wind plan. Um, so for Man City, right? I think so I'm going to pose this from two perspectives, and it goes without saying that the player that does well regardless of tactics is Haaland. Let's just get that out of the way, right? Set
Right.
pieces, penalties, open play, target men. What else do you want, right? 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. At 3-0 up, Haaland will get chances out of nowhere. Okay,
Mm.
that's an argument for a separate day. Now their plan A though is much more interesting because number one, you've brought up the fact that Stones play on the right side. I think this is the first time we saw City arguably play three central midfielders where two of them are defenders. Usually he would have one midfielder and one defender, or two midfielders and one defender. In this particular case, he inverted Stones and Akanji into midfield alongside Rodri. That is a very weird setup. It's a very weird setup. So this is like 2-3-5 in some cases. But
Well,
anyway, yeah. No, you wanna add to that?
Stones didn't start, right?
Okay, so it must have been a
So he
different
had
frame. Yeah,
Guardiol,
yeah. Guardiola,
Diaz,
Diaz,
and
Walker. Oh,
Walker,
sorry, it was
Akanji.
Walker. Yeah, sorry, it was Walker that inverted in the midfield alongside Akanji and Rodri. Sorry. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, um, in this particular case, right, they did it as a reaction to Chelsea setup, but I'm not gonna go into that too much. Uh, the profiteer in all of this is Bernardo Silva, who has been quietly putting in shifts because Bernardo Silva, as the free man of the side, right, can play literally any position from left back all the way to right wing, has been making all these clever little runs that helps Doku overload the left side. He helps link Foden and Alvarez in the right half space. He
Hmm.
plays the direct pass to Haaland before making the good no one run himself. So Bernardo Silva has been quietly doing bits. And that has, in some sense, cannibalized a lot of Julian Alvarez and Foden's output. Because in some sense, wherever the ball goes, they literally wait for Bernardo Silva to do something clever before they move into those spots. It's completely different from the last 4 game weeks where you have midfield and then you have forwards right in front somewhere parked in between traffic. Um Against Chelsea, I mean, at least what I've noticed is that the rain played a very big part. A lot of people would have noticed that Man City made a lot of errors on the ball, and this in part has to do a lot with Diaz and Vardiol being pressured really heavily by Palmer and Gallagher, who played as the number 10 for Chelsea. So the reason it looked like a relegation fight or a mid-table fight was really because the rain played a huge part, and it was, yeah, just slippery. It was just plain slippery, and that's how games are in the wet, right? Um,
Yeah, they're the
yeah.
best.
So, in terms of exploiting tactical weaknesses, it's very like, okay, Foden, did he do Foden things? Yes. Julian Alvarez, did he do Julian Alvarez things? Yes. So, if you want to talk about Julian Alvarez being opportunistic, yes, but how many times will he do it? I cannot guarantee that he will do it 3, 4 times a game anymore. It's not like early season when KDB first got injured. There are a lot more forces in play now, and the size of the pie, unfortunately, just is split between a lot more midfielders and forwards, at least compared to the first 8 game weeks. So that I will say about Julian Alvarez. Hmm. And yeah, the Bernardo Silva factor is real. I really have to put big flag out there. Whether he takes those chances himself or whether he sets someone like Doku up is another story. Because at the moment, sometimes City win the game very simply, like against Bournemouth, right? 6-1, it's completely because Bernardo Silva bombed down the left side. In this case, City sort of deserve to win, like very early on, but Chelsea, as you've put it very rightly, depend on individual moments. And right now, the individual moments are coming from two players. Raheem Sterling, who is again the player that is, Chelsea's version of Haaland, very adaptable, no matter what tactic they use, and Reece James. Reece James right now is in that sweet spot where he plays like 50 something minutes, 60 something minutes, and then he gets subbed off, right? But he is in there. He is in there working with Cole Palmer on the right side trying to engineer crosses for Raheem Sterling down the left. So that goal where James got in between players, where he took advantage of Gvardio's slip to play Sterling at the far post, we are going to see that quite often in the coming weeks. And I'm a big fan of that. I'm a very, very big fan of that because finally you have two players operating the way they should. But
Well,
beyond that, I did. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, I just as we wind down here, I did want to mention something. I think this was Sterling's best game of the season. You know, we saw that there was a lot of chatter there of Sterling early on in the season when he got that 19-point haul, right? I think it was 19 points, but he hauled, and in the game before that, people were talking about, oh, his dribbles in the box, his dribbles in the box.
Mm.
But even back then, he wasn't shooting, was taking too many touches in the box. And in this one, I just thought he was on another level. I thought maybe for me the best moment of the entire game was when Sterling nutmegged somebody. Was it Bernardo Silva himself? No. Was it Walker?
We've got
He did
a.
this. It was in midfield, and he was over by the flank in midfield, and he did this move and just destroyed somebody with a nutmeg. And I was like,
Oh,
that is Sterling. That's
oh,
the guy that I want. If Chelsea had shows some consistency like that, and if we see like some build with the return of Nkunku, if Pochettino can get Sterling, Palmer, and Nkunku all fit them all in the squad at the same time, and they start firing, I'm very interested in Chelsea because I can see a transformation starting to happen if they build on this performance. Because I didn't think it was while it was scrappy, I thought those individual moments like Chelsea, those individual moments from Chelsea, as they're getting players healthy, I think there's something to build on there. So hats off to Sterling. I thought he was fantastic.
mm, yep. Fair enough.
All right, and I think that will bring us to the end of the game week 12 as we head into just a quick preview. We're on 56 minutes here. We have about 25 people in the chat joining us. Just a quick preview at tomorrow's show, NetxG and some relevant metrics for game week 13. The only one I want to highlight, and this isn't me taking the piss, all right? This isn't is United. The data has finally caught up to United, and they have the lowest net XG, and it's just across the board. All the metrics kind of agree, except for they likes that left side against Everton. I guess going up against Ashley Young there. So and actually the other thing I'll highlight on the positive for United is Onana. Onana has been better, and his stats are improving lately. You can see that in the goalkeeper metric, 0.3 home and 0.4 away. The red means that it's a difficult matchup for opposing attacks, and the higher the number means the higher the influence of the goalkeeper in a positive direction for his own team. So with that being said, and that little highlight being made, I want to thank you, Lucian, again for all your hard work. The reviews were incredible. I know exactly what I want to write about now, and that's always thanks to you. So I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
More than happy to. And I'd just like to say that I would like to invite any discourse. So if you want to criticize whatever I say, whatever I look into, please do so, but hang around for the conversation. Because if you leave one comment and I reply to that comment, it just dies there as a conversation. I would love to really flesh things out so that yeah, we can all improve as a show.
Sounds good. And yeah, so do leave those messages in the Discord for you haulers, and we'll be back in about and actually in exactly 24 hours now, we'll be on with Nima and Mariner for our big basically it's a thank you show. And I'll take this moment as we leave here to thank all the haulers. Thank you everyone in the chat for getting us this far, and for all the support throughout the years. On that note, 59 minutes here. I'm going to go through and read the haulers out. David Harrison, Zach, Harbor Boy, Daddy Bot, Greenback Golfer, FPL Robbie. Those are the super haulers. Haulers coming in at Dread FPL, FPL Craig, Podna, Kevin Rose, Connor Hunt, Donny FPL, Oscar Arias, FPL Teacher. That's you, Lucian. Blonde, S. Scott Zem, Tom Gorsuch, Tavindra Raj, Lindsay O, FPL DG Boy 88, Akshay, Dom, Claire FPL, Catherine A, William Diager, Harry Not Kane, Neil, Sebastian Koo, Benjamin Lockwood, FPL Rubber Ducky, Neil's Apples, Nick Khan, Big Mike, FPL Discomfort, General Zod, Gameweek Ladies, Street Present, something. Jack Jaskrin Singh, Antoni Santonopoulos, FPL Planner Tien, Jamie Baker, Brett M, Mark Bond, FPL Eric, Terse X, Patreons, Elron, Lucian, FPL California, Thaywin Bob, Ron Frost, and Mike Burke. Thank you so much. 5959. We're out of here.